Well, after a lot of bearish talk on the mining stocks, we're getting an optimistic take now, courtesy of Mr. Rob McEwen, who joins me now on the sidelines of the Silver and Gold Summit. Rob, thanks for being with us.
Great to be here, Danielle.
It's hard to be optimistic because I'm looking at the majors, looking at all the results coming out, most notably Goldcorp. I'm thinking, how can we be optimistic in this environment?
You're right. The majors haven't done any favor to the sector. They've gone out and they've sold off production, so their growth curves have a negative slope to them. They've got rid of their exploration, and they're shrinking, and they got bad results. So anyone looking at the sector says, why would I buy a gold stock? The biggest ones aren't making any money. Well, it's happening in the junior space right now that there's been some big increases. I think it's the mid-tier and the juniors that are going to be the exciting spot for gold investors and for investors at large, because right now the pessimism is enormous with respect to this sector.
So at what point in the cycle, if we are looking at the juniors and the mid-tiers, would you say we're at?
I'd say we are a third of the way along in a bull market that started at the beginning of 16. And we've got another 3, 4, 5 years to go. And in that time, there's a chance of seeing the gold equities go up 3 to 4 times where they are today.
The question is, how do you educate the general public on this? Because we live in a bubble. We know this world. People in this room are well versed on the junior and the mid-tier space. But let's go beyond that. How do you give that message to the person who only sees Apple or Netflix?
They have to become aware of it. They don't think there's any money to be made in this sector. But if you looked at, since the beginning of 16, the S&P's up 32%. The Dow's up about 40, 42, 43%. Our stock is up 102%. That's 3 times better than the S&P. And so you have to get that out into the broader market.
Who's to blame for that not being out there? Is it the investor not doing their job? Has the gold industry not done a good enough job?
I think everybody's just, there's no concern for a safe haven. No one feels there's any need for a safe haven. Everybody's comfortable that the government's going to bail us out. No one's paying any attention to debt because interest rates are so low, and it doesn't put pressure on you. But if you start looking around the world, you look at the Turkish lira, the Argentinian peso, the Mexican peso, these currencies are falling apart. And they borrowed, a lot of their governments and corporations borrowed in dollar terms, and the dollar cost of that has gone up dramatically.
And if we look at central bank buying this month, for example, we saw a Poland buy who wasn't a buyer of gold before, and that's a signal to many that hold on. Do these Eastern European countries see a currency crisis happening here?
Yes, well, a couple of countries with bad currencies set off the global, and you just need a few more of these and they lose confidence. Interest rates in those countries where the currencies have dropped against the dollar are soaring. And everybody here is on a variable rate mortgage. They're consuming a lot. And there'll be a time, and also it's a rotation. If you look at the broad market, it's at historic levels, and it has more downside on it. And the gold market, in the last 77 years, the last bear market, it was the deepest and longest we've ever been in 77 years. So the downside is small, and the return could be quite high, 3 to 4 times. So it's just a good trade to rotate part of your money out of the broad market into gold, and that's the message that needs to get into the mass media.
Rob McEwen, at the end of the year, we always ask our audience to vote for their mining CEO of the year. Since we launched this special feature we do, you've won it for 4 years consecutively now, 3 or 4 years consecutively now. So people really, trust that you understand this market. They see you as a leader. So if you had to speak to these majors now, just going back to the majors, what would be your advice to them, to the CEOs of these guys?
All right. I'd say, 1, you should reduce your pay. The CEO's pay, in the last 7 years, from 2010 to 2017, the 15 largest companies in the industry paid themselves just under $700 million, $695 million just to the CEOs.
You take $1.
During that time, I got $3.
Oh, excuse me.
All right.
Pardon.
I got a raise.
Got a raise.
So I'd say pay yourself less, get your stock performing better, and buy shares in your company. I just increased my investment by $25 million in our mine, and so I'm now up to $160 million as my cost base in McEwen Mining.
Well, I hope you at least up it to $5 and get yourself at least a Starbucks coffee this year.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. Vote for Rob McEwen, CEO of the Year on Kitco.com.